Now that we have learned to read the face, let's talk about how to read the body. There are three important concepts about nonverbal communication we need to understand as we dig deeper into reading body language throughout the course. First, we have to explore where body language comes from. When we first started studying body language, we thought that babies learn emotion expression by watching their parents. So when a baby is born, it looks at its mother's face and mimics whatever it sees. As the baby grows up, it learns nonverbal expressions from interacting with and watching its parents. But in recent years, we have learned that body language might actually come less from nurture and more from nature. Researchers at the University of British Columbia wanted to know if nonverbal behavior was learned or innate. So they studied congenitally blind athletes from all over the world. These are athletes who have been blind since birth. They wanted to see if the blind athletes make the same expressions as seeing athletes, and if these expressions are the same across cultures. Amazingly, they found that seeing athletes and non-seeing athletes make the same body and facial expressions when they win and lose. In fact, most people cannot even tell from victory pictures which are the seeing athletes and which are the blind athletes. All of the winning athletes, no matter which culture they were in, and if they were seeing or non-seeing, all made the universal body language of pride. This is when you raise your arms up towards the sky, tilt your head up, and open your mouth in a smile. In this picture, the athlete on the right is blind, and the athlete on the left is seeing. Losing athletes did the body language of defeat. They hung their head low, rolled in their shoulders, and pressed their face into a painful expression. The blind athletes had never seen anyone win a race, so they were not doing copied body language from learned behavior. Instead, their reactions were innate, and this is how we are learning that most of our body language is not learned. It's not cultural, it's innately programmed within us. Of course, there are some body language cultural differences. For example, in some cultures, the thumbs up gesture is crude. In others, it's positive. For the purposes of this course, I'm going to focus on universal body language cues. Okay, let's go into the next aspect of reading and understanding body language. And by the way, I don't mean to nerd out on you, but this concept, in my opinion, is one of the coolest things about body language science. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. The concept is that body language can not only change how other people feel about you, but it can also change how you feel about yourself. This is super important. Let me tell you about a Harvard Business School study to help explain this concept. When we first started researching body language, we thought that it was only important for our interactions with others. However, current research has taught us that body language also affects our own internal emotions. Researchers Dana Carney and Amy Cuddy wanted to know if body language could change our actions, internal emotions, and chemistry, in addition to how others perceive us. To do this, they brought participants into a lab and had their saliva tested to see what their normal hormone levels were. Then they split the participants up into two groups. One group did confident body language, or power poses, for 5 minutes. And I'm going to show you specifically what these are later in the course. The second group did low power, restrictive poses for 5 minutes. Both groups were then asked to gamble to see how many risks they would take. And finally, they took their saliva again to see if there was a hormone change just from those 5 minutes of posing. Specifically, the researchers tested the participants' cortisol and testosterone levels. Very briefly, let me explain why these two hormones are so important. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It weakens the immune system, increases blood pressure, and is bad for long-term memory. Testosterone, on the other hand, is the strength hormone. It improves endurance, sharpens cognitive abilities, and increases muscle mass. So the researchers wanted to know if body language poses could change our hormone levels. So what did they find? Pretty crazy. First, the power posers took 86% more risks than the low power posers. So just standing in confident body language makes you take more confident actions. Second, when the researchers retested the posers' saliva levels, they found that high power posers had a 25% decrease in cortisol and a 19% increase in testosterone for both men and women. In contrast, low power posers had a 17% increase in cortisol and a 10% decrease in testosterone. This is huge. Confident body language produces more strength hormones, and weak body language increases stress hormones. The power poses also changed the behavior of the participants by changing the amount people gambled. And lastly, the poses also changed the participants' emotions. High power posers of both sexes reported feeling more powerful and in charge just after standing in the different poses for a few minutes. This is hugely important. It shows us that the way we hold our body not only affects others' perceptions of us, but it also changes our own perceptions of ourselves. When talking about changing our body language, we have to understand it's a feedback loop that affects all aspects of our interactions. We feel confident, so we go into confident body language, which in turn makes us act and feel even more confident. And it works the other way as well. We feel anxious, so we go into anxious poses, which make us act and feel even more anxious. So in the next few videos, we're going to learn how to avoid negative anxious cycle and how to implement the positive confident cycle. The next issue I want to explain about body language is that our brain is actually wired to notice how people look and interpret their nonverbal. However, our brain is like a muscle. The more we practice, the better we get. In fact, author Malcolm Gladwell shared a study in his book Outliers that said you need over 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert at something. While studying elite violinists in Germany, researchers wanted to know what made the difference between the professional and amateur violinists. Was it genetics, teachers, hand muscles? They found the only difference between the elite players and amateurs was the amount of practice. Elite violinists had logged over 10,000 hours of practice. So the more you practice body language, the better you will get. Luckily, we interact with people all the time, so you have plenty of opportunity to apply skills from the course in real life. I actually built the course and have decided to keep my entire blog free because of this concept. I slowly build you up to more and more advanced concepts as your brain flexes. And then I make sure to keep posting practice videos in the course and on my blog to give you as much continued practice as you need. Be sure to subscribe for free to our blog, scienceofpeople.org, to get that free practice even after the course finishes, because I don't always post practice videos in the course, but I do put all of them in my free newsletter.